It's with real pleasure that I introduce our next reader. Ron McFarland is the extraordinary and rare fusion of scholarship and creativity. He is, in fact, a renowned scholar in 17th century British literature, and he's also a great scholar of many other aspects of literature, including the 20th century. I've had Ron for numerous courses, and I have to say I've been incredibly privileged. As an undergrad, I had some really wonderful teachers, but by far, Ron is the best lit teacher I've ever had. Extraordinary. And he also is a wonderful poet, as his recent volume, Subtle Thieves, attests to. So, without further ado, I'd just like to introduce Ron McFarland.
Yes, he made no mention of the Tom Selleck look-alike. That was fairly obvious for the first 20 or so years here. My students often, that was before I shaved off the mustache, often pointed out the dead ringer sort of aspects. And I was reminded those glorious days when Brett wrote up his name, his hallowed name. I wanted to add to the thank you list Jennifer Hawk, of course, and Max and Brandon, who has done so much over the years. This is our 6th annual Hemingway craziness. And also Jennifer Belergen Hawk, who has been another point person and who greeted some of you at the door and handed you your winning tickets, along with your losing tickets, of course. I got losing tickets. I wanted just to read maybe just a sentence or two from this book. This came out, and so this is kind of like a snuck peek instead of, or a sneak peek if you prefer the old-fashioned as opposed to a sneak peek, because this one's already snuck or sneaked. And but I wrote a book a few years ago called The Rockies in First Person, which dealt with among other things, memoirs by Kim Barnes here and Mary Blue and others in our vicinity, in our general area here, and it was a delight to write them. I loved doing it. But in some ways I liked writing appropriating Hemingway even more. It was a kick because it was kind of a foray into popular fiction, and with some occasional apologies to unpopular fiction by people like Milan Kundera and so forth, and Ray Bradbury, who had also appropriated Hemingway. The idea of the thing was to comment on the 40 or so novels in which Hemingway appears as a character. And so it was a fascinating idea to me. And it also dealt with novels by people like Michael Palin, the novel called Hemingway's Chair, in which characters who are obsessed with Hemingway have their moment on the stage. So it was a kind of a kick. This is how it begins, chapter 1. One is inclined to agree with Nathan Heller that Ernest Hemingway would be aghast to see what has become of Ernest Hemingway. One doubts, for example, that Hemingway would have yearned to be a character in popular pulp fiction pursued by Hermann Goering in Vincent Cosgrove's The Hemingway Papers, or incorporated into a trilogy of crime novels written by Craig MacDonald between 2008 and 2011, or joining Jesus in a graphic novel in pursuit of Hitler. And so it goes. So I don't want to add too much more to this. I was going to read a poem that would have been a sneak peek, but Georgia pointed out that not only has it been rejected about 10 or 12 times, but I read it, I think, last spring, and everyone's already bored with it, so I thought I'd do another snuck peek thing here. I wanted to read the last poem in this little chapbook called The Hemingway Poems, which came out in 2000 and I think is now out of print. And it's called Virtual Hemingway, the Late Period. There are 3 virtual Hemingway poems. The first one is Virtual Hemingway, the Early Period, which begins, when you are Ernest Hemingway, you'll do everything right. And then the middle period is actually, apparently you messed up big this time. You must have pushed the wrong button, for now you are not Papa at all, but Pauline. Poor old Mom on fly-blown safari somewhere on the God-forsaken Serengeti. But the one I'm going to actually read is called Virtual Hemingway. Virtual Hemingway, the Late Period. And it's a good example of what I mean by appropriating Hemingway. It's where Hemingway actually appears in the literary text somehow or another. Having been Hemingway before, you've learned how to live close to the edge, how to drink two-fistedly, how to think on your feet when fear rattles your cage, how to deal with women except for your mother, how to make and break good friends. Having been Hemingway before, you've learned how to write close to the bone, how to carve relentless sentences from the often recalcitrant rock of language, how to knock fatuous, flatulent adjectives into a cocked hat, leaving mostly nouns and verbs. Having been Hemingway before, you've learned how to die dozens of ways, how to be blown apart by artillery, how to get gored in a corrida, how to drop quietly, neatly drilled through a score of fatal sites in your body, that broken shrine. Thank you.